And welcome back to Touchline Talk on 110 Sports. We're going to jump right into our winners and losers from the weekend in Europe here, starting with our first winner, and that is Real Madrid. For a couple reasons, it's always good to get a 4-1 victory over Huesca, specifically when Eden Hazard scores a screamer like that. Definitely worth going and watching the highlights just to see that goal for a guy who just has not been what Real Madrid hoped he would be. Maybe this kickstarts him and allows him to be the difference for them and get them back to a point where they are competing with the best teams in Europe, because I need to see a lot more from them for me to believe they're anywhere near that top level where Bayern and a healthy Liverpool and PSG are right now. Talked about this multiple times about La Liga, and just nobody seems to be that good when you go put them in Europe. But if there's a team that's going to figure it out, I think it would be Real Madrid. They're now 1 point back of Real Sociedad with the game in hand, so they're right there at the top of this table. And you also have the fact that Barcelona dropped points again and are just another reminder they're removing Bartomeu doesn't fix all the problems there. It's a start. I talked about this in my 5 things from the week for 110sportsmedia.com if you want to check that out. It's the beginning, not the end of this journey that Barcelona are on to fix all of their problems. It's a first step, not the final step. So Real Madrid are just in a much better spot from an organizational standpoint. And I also made them a winner just because after what happened, so they have this rough couple games, they go and they win El Clasico, then nearly have a really costly loss in the Champions League, but find a way to get those goals back and give themselves a real chance to get through that group. To come out of that and get a convincing, comfortable win, to me is a big deal. This is about who can be consistent. And so now they've got a little bit of momentum going into this week's massive Champions League game. And the ability to overcome those couple losses in a row and to start feeling a lot better, and to go from an El Clasico win to a draw in the Champions League that showed some real mental toughness to a comfortable win in the league. All of a sudden, if you can get another win or two in the Champions League and take care of business in La Liga, they're going to be able to distance themselves from everybody else in Spain, I think. So it's all about consistency and just putting in good performances, and this is the start of that. Now we got to see if they can do it in the Champions League and do it again over the weekend, and then do it again in the Champions League and do it again over the weekend, because they've been either disappointing or inconsistent so far, just like pretty much everybody else in the world. Our first loser is the team that has not been inconsistent and has really been as solid as just about any team in Europe, and that's Red Bull Leipzig. The problem is they lost to Mönchengladbach on a Hans Wolf goal in the 60th minute. Wasn't a particularly concerning performance. Losses are going to happen, but they're coming off of the beatdown against Manchester United. Now they lose this one. They're behind Dortmund and Bayern by 2 points because of this loss, because they've got an extra draw in there that those two teams don't. So now it's this situation where this is more like probably the Leipzig team we expected. They're going to be really good. You don't want to doubt Julian Nagelsmann, but can they be the team that got to the Champions League semifinals without Timo Werner? There's a difference between being the third best team in Germany and being a top 10, top 15 team in the world that can make a deep run in the Champions League. And so far this season, they had been looking like they were every bit as good as they were last year, if not better, because of how consistent they'd been, and they've been at the top of the Bundesliga table. But now you've got back-to-back losses. You got to find a way to pull this together quickly. And we'll get to the Champions League consequences they have coming up here this week too. But if they could have won this one, it would have done a lot and said a lot to me about their ability to contend in this league and really be the third team and make it a 3-team race. Because you're not catching Bayern from behind. I refuse to believe that. If you give them this kind of cushion and they hold on to it for a couple weeks, so that we're talking Thanksgiving time, Christmas time, they're ahead, you're not catching them. You don't catch Bayern from behind. Dortmund has been able to make this interesting because they've been good at the beginning of the season and have built a lead and put the pressure on Bayern. Dortmund is in this thing because they're right there with Bayern. Leipzig, I think this is the end of their Bundesliga title hopes. Not that they were significant or expected to really contend anyway, but to me that warrants being one of the losers this week. Our second winner is Sassuolo over in Italy. I've talked so many times about the depth of Serie A and all these teams that I really like, and it's Sassuolo in second place behind AC Milan in this league. AC Milan won again thanks to more Ibrahimovic dramatics. It's remarkable that he's doing what they're doing, what they've done since he came pretty much. But right behind them is Sassuolo. They've got 57% of the possession against Napoli. They win 2-0. A PK from Manuel Lopetegui and a 95th minute goal from Maxime Lopez to seal the deal. They've been really good so far. And again, competition hasn't been the greatest, but you look at the struggles that Inter have had against some lesser teams and what's happened to Juventus. At some point, you just got to beat the teams on your schedule, and that's going to go a long way this season, it seems like. And Sassuolo is doing that, and then they get this statement win over Napoli. And Napoli have been really good. Don't look at the table and the record because they had to forfeit a game and lost a point. Nobody's beating them. And particularly nobody in Italy, and here comes Sassuolo. So congratulations to them. It's out of the question they find a way to get to a Champions League spot. They got to keep winning games like this, but they can only beat who's on their schedule, and they take care of business against Napoli. So we're getting to the point where we got to start taking some of these teams seriously because there just aren't a bazillion games in the season. We're to the point where teams are playing 6, 7, 8 games, which of course it's still early. I'm not saying I actually think Sassuolo is going to finish in the top 4, but you got to at least start talking about it because you can't argue with what they've done so far. Really, really impressive stuff. Then we go over to England, where loser number 2 is West Brom. This is very simple. If you're West Brom, you can't lose to Fulham. Fulham now jumps West Brom and moves out of the relegation zone with this win. West Brom had these extra draws. They've been the better of those two teams through this season. But all you need if you're Fulham is a result like this and a couple other things to go your way, and all of a sudden you're the team that's got the chance to stay up instead of West Brom. West Brom has been significantly better than Fulham for me so far this season. They're not good, and they could very well still get relegated. I picked them to get relegated at the beginning of the season. But if you have any hope of staying up, it's by finding ways to get those draws like they have and winning this game. Don't give Fulham an opportunity to make up this lost ground. Don't let them jump you by giving them 3 points. It's a really, really bad loss, and I think it's a massive deal in West Brom's hopes to stay up. I've just kind of already reached the conclusion Fulham's going down. So to me, this is much more about West Brom and West Brom not finding a way to at least get a point out of this game. Because you've still got Burnley and Sheffield United down there. And I didn't think they were going to... I'm still not convinced they're going to be that bad all season. But those were the two teams I said I was concerned about. There's a real chance that one of those four teams is staying up. I'm not ruling out the possibility that both Sheffield United and Burnley go down. I wouldn't bet on it, but West Brom has been the best of those four teams so far, but they're not in that position anymore because they lost to Fulham. That in and of itself makes them one of the biggest losers in Europe for me this weekend. On the more positive side, our final winner number 3, is James Ward-Prowse. He celebrated his 26th birthday by generating 4 goals off of set pieces. One of them didn't count because it was a corner kick that was eventually ruled out for offside, but he put it in the corner, a really good corner that got a goal off of it. The other 3 did count. He had another free kick goal. He had a free kick assist, and then he scored 2 free kick goals. I wanted to put, not only was it one of the more remarkable performances you're going to see just in terms of generating goals off of set pieces for yourself and others, but I also want to take this opportunity to talk about James Ward-Prowse because he is the best free kick taker in the Premier League. I am willing to go that far. Kevin De Bruyne is the best crosser of the ball, which obviously translates to free kicks as well, and he's ridiculously good at taking them from a goal scoring standpoint too. But I'm giving the slight edge to Ward-Prowse, and I'm willing to have a conversation. But the reality is that James Ward-Prowse is on Kevin De Bruyne's level when it comes to set pieces. There are very, very few people in the world that can say that. And he has proven time and time again. He had a stretch last year where I think he scored a free kick goal in 2 or 3 straight games. He has these stretches, and he works wonders off of set pieces. He is terrific. He's one of my favorite players. I think it's disappointing he hasn't gotten more looks from an international perspective and hasn't spent time at a high-profile Premier League club. But he's one of the reasons Southampton is always, for the most part, good. Finishing 10th, 12th, whatever it might be. It's because they keep guys like him around. He is so much fun to watch because of his set pieces. And what a way to celebrate your birthday. Just scoring goals left and right. And he got 2 of them himself by just working his magic. He is remarkable to watch. I wanted to make him a winner and appreciate what he did this weekend. Our final loser is Lille in France. I talked about PSG and this league being one where teams aren't dropping points. That's because PSG aren't dropping points anymore. Lille score in the 22nd minute against Lyon, but concede an old goal in the 41st, go up a man in the 50th, and can't find a winner. Which means that's their 3rd straight draw across all competitions and their 4th in 9 league games. They're still unbeaten in this league, but PSG is ahead of them now by 2 points because PSG won again and Lille is having a hard time winning. And it's such a big deal because 1 point after 1 point after 1 point is just not enough. And so now they've dropped back into the mix of all of these teams battling for second, and PSG is going to run away with this league, which was always what was going to happen even with their start. But now, again, just like in Germany, you're trying to chase them from behind, and it's not going to happen. But Lille were the team, to me, that had the opportunity to make this somewhat interesting. You got to find a way to win these games. Congratulations on being unbeaten, but this is an example of why I'm not in love with the unbeaten stretch thing. If you're 8 games unbeaten, but 5 of them are draws, it just doesn't do all that much for you in terms of moving up the table and staying at the top of the table. You're dropping 10 points there, if I did that math correctly. Wins are huge. You got to find a way to turn your losses into draws. But you got to find a way to turn these games into wins if you want to be up at the top of the table. These teams are just too good, be it PSG or Liverpool and Man City in the Premier League, or Bayern and Dortmund in Germany, Real Madrid, Barcelona in La Liga, whoever it may be. That's the one thing that Liverpool have done a phenomenal job of this season, and why they are still right there at the top of the Premier League despite everything that they've had to endure injury-wise. Because they continue to find ways to get winners. Draws aren't the end of the world, but when you start stringing them together, I don't put a lot of stock in this unbeaten thing. I'm okay if you lose a close game if it means you also win some. I'm very much of the mindset, and this is one of my fundamental disagreements with Jose Mourinho, at least when he was at Manchester United. I am very much of the belief that you have got to chase the points. If it cost you a couple draws that end up being losses, so be it. When you look at what's happening, whether it's, again, PSG or what we've seen these past couple of seasons in the Premier League, if you're trying to get up there into the top four and into a title race, with the firepower these teams have, you have got to play for wins every single game. And I'm not saying Lille were playing for a draw here. That was more about Mourinho and the defensive philosophy. I am all behind you've got to try and keep pace with them. You have got to try and win those games. And Lille have been unable to do that for the most part this season. So yeah, you're in a season where nobody else has really made a major statement in Ligue 1. Yeah, you're near the top of the table. You're still technically in contention. But it didn't even take that long for PSG, with the catastrophic beginning they had, to catch up. And they were always going to catch up. But we're just sitting here in the beginning of November. I mean, they may not lose another game the rest of the season. They could win this thing by 15 points easy still. Make it look as easy as they do every season. And they were so far behind the 8 ball. But when you don't continue to pick up wins, and when you have to settle for draws, it can really, really hurt you. And Lille's an example of that. So it's PSG's league now. Not surprising, but I thought it might take a little bit longer than this. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because they're so much better than everybody else. But this is something to keep an eye on for Lille too moving forward. If you want to finish in second, I feel like somebody's going to make a run here. Whether it's Marseille or Rennes or somebody. And so, to hold on to second place, it's got to be more wins. It's great to be unbeaten, but it only matters so much if 45-50% of those results are draws. So, it's an example I wanted to illustrate of one of my fundamental beliefs here. Lille still had a very good start to the season, but got to find a way to get some wins. They were not able to do that this weekend. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to look ahead to everything these next couple days, running through all of the MLS games on Wednesday night and the biggest Champions League matchups, things you need to know, all of that good stuff. You're watching Touchline Talk on 110 Sports. Don't go anywhere.